Hi and welcome back to Bike Speeds. So this week we're going to give this Voodoo mountain bike a good old tidy up and clean up. You can see from how black and dirty and debris ridden this bike is that it's a long overdue service, but this is a real testament to what you can achieve. So first thing we do, we've got this solid bristled nylon brush that we're just going to scrub the tyres with. It's actually the easiest point to do this when the wheels and tyres are still inflated and on the bike, because you can push against the bike, you can rotate the wheel, and so it's always the first job when we're doing a full-on detail where we just give the tyres a good scrub, get any debris out of the treads and everything, and give the tyre walls themselves a good clean up before we start stripping any of the bike down. So next up we're getting the cassette off. This cassette's going in the bin, it's completely worn out, and then we're taking off the disc because you can see the amount of debris in the centre of that disc, and also we want to wet and dry the braking surfaces of this because we also gave this a brake service along the way, and so it's just sort of a steady progression of strip down to clean and get ready for cleaning. We even on this bike took off the derailleur hanger. You can see the amount of debris in there, the threads, the ends, the little nuts and bolts, hold things together. This bike was very ridden with, it was a funny sort of dirt. It was almost a grease, but it actually came off quite easily, so it was a funny old bike really. But anyway, we take off everything on this one, including the bottom bracket and the chain set and everything. We got this right back to the frame. You can see that that dirt there would be very hard to clean off with the chain set on, or indeed the bottom bracket. So everything came off this bike. You can see like around that bottom bracket there's sort of hairs and debris that's built up inside there, would just rub against that bottom bracket. That's all torque and power being took away from you. Another job I do before I strip down, I took the brake pads out of those calipers, because again that's a little bit easier than when you're holding it in one hand trying to do it with the other. The bike holds that part for you. But you can see, you know, even these brake mounts, everything was really coated deep dirt with this bike, so everything come off. Even these clips, look, you can see the insides of them, the edges all bound with debris, so they all go through the ultrasonic cleaner as well. We didn't need to replace them, we can just chuck them in the ultrasonic cleaner, which has a degreaser in it as well, and all them little parts, they absolutely pop out once they're done, and it's, you know, relatively straightforward to do. All the cables were chewed up on the derailleurs, so they were all replaced. Full on strip down on this bike. It was quite a pleasurable bike to do. This one took us many hours with filming as well. We started this on a Saturday and finished it on a Sunday. Then Simon, who does the editing, continues to edit on the Monday. Tuesday, which is right now as I'm speaking to you, we do this voiceover that he then integrates into the video Wednesday morning, uploads the video Wednesday afternoon, and you see it live 7 o'clock every Wednesday at 7 PM. we upload a video, but they're a progression of several days work and time. Each job that we show is just a bike that has specifically come into our shop. This was courtesy of, a few weeks ago we did the Pooch BMX service. The owner of that bike knew the owner of this bike and was obviously pleased with that job. They got talking about us and our YouTube channel, and this bike came in along the way from that, so it was only natural that we should show this one to you, because obviously we've featured one of their group of circle of friends bikes before with the Pooch BMX, so we thought we'd show you this one too. So you can see, I mean, look how thick that grease and debris is on them jockey wheels. How on earth can you pull a chain through that? You know, it's really thick. A great reason for having your bike serviced is to get all this debris and dirt off. All the nuts and bolts, all the little fittings, discs, everything, all in the ultrasonic cleaner, which, like I say, that contains a degreaser, so it degreases, ultrasonic cleans, and then we wash parts off. We never put pedals in the ultrasonic cleaner. We always just wash those off because we don't want to flush out the bearings that are inside those, because they're quite hard to redo, and on a regular service we don't need to do that. So we even took the saddle off, because you may have noticed on the before pictures that was at 45 degrees. It wasn't even flat, how you couldn't even sit on that. So we took that off, cleaned off the old stickers, even cleaned up those slices of fruit that were hanging off the back there. We even give those a clean up. All nuts and bolts. But the ultrasonic cleaner is a gem of a tool. If you're into servicing your bikes in any way, shape or form, you need an ultrasonic cleaner, because especially for derailleurs, they absolutely come up as new when they come out of there. Once you grease and oil everything up, they are like a new part. One of my rules of thumb is not to put jockey wheels in the degreaser, But in this instance they were so bad that I did run them through, because they didn't have seal bearings in those. They were running on a central pivot. We put those through and then re-greased them when we rebuilt them. Wet and dried down the discs there. You could see that I was just wet and drying the surfaces, braking surfaces of those, because they're a bit like a vinyl record. They get grooves in them, scores, and then they make an awful lot of noise. Pads, again, they weren't that worn, but they were very road impregnated, so we give them the brass bristle brush, and then I just skim these on my grinder. You can see it just gets all the debris off the surface, and they're ready to go again. So again, we're just greasing up those jockey wheels, as I mentioned. Bit of Loctite to hold the frame together. Again on the other one, the cage I should say, together, of the derailleur. So we've greased the jockey wheels, used Loctite on the fittings, a little bit of oil on all the pivot points, and then some genuine Shimano grease on the main return spring itself, which you can see we're now doing there. So several processes even to a derailleur, and again with front derailleur. You can see there we've got a new way of administering our oils. Instead of just using a spray oil like we have done in the past, we're now using syringes with a blunt needle on the end, and just get much closer to that pivot point without too much excess, which when we've just degreased everything, we don't want more oil on there than necessary. So we've switched to this new system of using a syringe to administer our oils. This wasn't actually on the job list, but I decided to put new fluid into the brakes. You can see the colour of that, it's brown. It's the old mineral oil is really deteriorated. You can see here, brown on the top and then green at the bottom there, where that's the new oil come right through to the lever. So I know it's got complete fresh oil in there. I always use pick an oil that's a different colour to what was originally in the system, because then I can see when I've pushed right through, be it Shimano oils or Cyclo oils, whichever oil I'm using, I can check to see that it's come right through. Next up, the back wheel. We're just using a chain degreaser here. I also went across the rim itself, because centrifugal force sends out all the oils from your chain to the outside of your wheel, and wheels can get quite mucky really, right up to the outside edges of them, so we give that a good clean up. When we're doing these details and we're showing you these details, we actually tend to only do one item and one side of the bike. So we tend to usually show the back wheel, but the process is the same on the front, and we usually show drive side of the frame and bike. We don't show you non-drive side, because the videos would just end up so long and it would be tedious to watch. So we tend to show one side for you to give you an idea of the way we approach a bike service and repair, and then you can take your own ideas away from that if they're useful to you. Just turning the tyre, getting that logo, the Kendra logo, over the valve, just makes everything line up nicely. A little bit of grease on the free hub there, which you can see the centre of that. Look how clean that is. You know, all them little things, little nylon brush in there. Maybe you don't see it all on camera, but there's an awful lot of hours go in to clean the bike to this detail. Next up, a little bit of Loctite on the threads of the rotor bolts, all torqued up. Quick release there, has been greased, oiled, and is, you know, absolutely as good as it can get. And now the pleasurable bit of the big softy nylon brush to wash down this very dirty, deteriorating frame, and I think you'll be amazed at how we bring this one up. So we start off with the big softy and soapy water. We clean all that down with a microfiber towel. That absorbs the water out, minimises any extra scratching to the bike. Then we just measure. If it's a painted bike, just check that paint is thick enough to take a good clean up. This was a very consistent paint job on this bike. Everywhere we measured was 0.2 millimetre. That's a very consistently painted bike. This, usually they vary along the frame in different parts, but this was nice and consistent. So now we're using the teacup, British product. Obviously we have regional variations depending on where you are in the world. I expect in America that may not be available, or in Europe, so you have to use the sort of the cleaner that you know is available in your region. Maybe if you're in the USA, or if you're abroad somewhere else, Australia, we've got quite a lot of viewers in Australia. You can drop a link to what your chosen cleaning products are. The viewers in your area can find those then. So once we've tea-coated, we're now just using a resin-based polish to polish the entire frame, the forks, the handlebars, even those hoses for the brakes I cleaned with the car polish before we started to rebuild the bike, which is what we're now doing. So we've got the new cassette on there, reinstalled in the bottom bracket, a little bit of grease on the threads because this was really hard to remove. It had completely seized in that frame. Got an aluminium frame with a bottom bracket, I think, that had some form of steel, and yeah, that was seized solid when we took that out. Two-man effort to get that out. But anyway, you can see how clean that is now. Back goes the chain set, which we were aware that we had a problem with that, which we'll address shortly. We did actually look to replacing that at one point, but for a couple of reasons we didn't. We actually reused it, but you'll see what we do to that shortly as in terms of setting it up. On goes our derailleur, which, I mean, these parts now look like new parts, so it was incredible the way they cleaned up. The bike really came up a treat. With the brake pads, we just put a little bit of copper slip on there because you can see those rings. That's where the pistons themselves are rubbing against the brake pad. If you just put a little bit of copper slip on there, it will stop any deterioration through rust, and it will stop any vibration, and it's just a good little bit of practice just to put a bit of grease on the back of those pads. If you use copper slip, it takes the heat, it won't wash off, it won't end up impregnating the braking surface of those pads. So copper slip's what you always use on brakes. Next up, we're just putting the front wheel back on, the front brakes. So these brakes, we've now skimmed the discs, we've cleaned the pads, we've put new oil in. That's a full brake service on those without replacing parts. Those brakes felt a world different to when they came in after we finished the bike. Again, a little bit of copper slip on the brake pedals there, on the main pedals there, and then all the little fittings and everything, copper slip to stop them sticking in the frame, so that if they needed to be used in the future they can be removed easily, and the customer can then start fitting his accessories without any problems. And finally, we're getting this saddle on here that was at 45 degrees. We've now horizontal to the bike frame and the tyres. At least he can now sit on his saddle. So I don't know how that had ended up where it was, but it did. But anyway, that's probably a story for another day from the owner of the bike. New chain, of course, new cables for the gearing. We're really beginning to be on the homeward straight here. Please subscribe to the channel. We've had this is a Tuesday that I'm recording this voiceover. Yesterday, Sunday to Monday, we run our figure evening to evening. Sunday to Monday, we actually had our best day for months since our AirTags video for subscribers in 24 hours. So we're really pleased to be beginning to steamroller with the subscribers. We're getting more and more each day. So that's very, very pleasing to see. So if you're new here and you found us through the searches, subscribe, drop us a comment. We love reading the comments, and you can tell us how you found us. We're always interested in that too. So now you can see here the chain is jumping up on that chain ring. You can see as we come around, bang, up there. And I noticed it was always doing it when the pedal stroke was at the top. So looking down that chain ring, I could realise that it was bent. So I'm just going to straighten it here. So we just give that a little straighten, and suddenly the chain is sitting there without skipping up. So that's taken a big old knock at some point to bend like that, but a little bend straight, and it's good to go again. Getting the old ends on the cables, torquing up all the fittings, getting the torque wrench out on every nut and bolt that's left that we haven't already done during the rebuild. This bike is going to be, by the time it's re-ridden, absolutely perfect. You know, there's going to be no bolt or stone unturned. You know, it's going to be absolutely perfect. Inflate the tyres and make sure they're all the right pressure as well. And then just a final detail here, this distortion sticker, this bike had been sticker bombed, so we didn't remove any of the stickers with the exception of the debris of a sticker on the saddle. So we just repaired that sticker with a little bit of double-sided tape so as it doesn't peel up anymore. And I think you'll agree from these before and after shots, this bike is worlds apart from where it was when it came in, and has gone from a bike that's almost ready to be thrown away to a bike that has great value, was well worth the service, and is ready to be ridden again. So thanks for watching. We'll see you back here next Wednesday at 7 PM.